Okay. Doesn't make it any less true. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, March 5th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags. We're brought to you by Stokastic and OddsShopper. If you want DFS, pick'em, or sports betting, we have everything you could possibly want. They're going to have to create something new, and then we could corner the market on that as well. 8 games tonight, only 7 on DraftKings. We have a late night hammer of Pistons Clippers on FanDuel. Can't be as ridiculous as yesterday's slate. 4 games locking at 7 o'clock tonight. I don't want to be the live before lock crew. You got to make sure you're watching that one because they're going to get a lot of news. Before we get started, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Spags, how did yesterday go for you?
It was good. I had a top 25 finisher, which I was really proud of. It really didn't take much more than having Devin Vassell and Paolo Banchero in the same lineup, both guys putting up 70. But that was good. Like I've been on the schneid like the last week or so between the injuries. I was really crushed by Jaren Jackson and not Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey out a couple slates ago. Last week had the Porzingis scratch killed me. The obvious scratch or injury killed me. Like really, it's been a tough run. So getting one thing right, I think feels good. But this slate, it's my kind of slate. I think these are the slates you hate the most, where it's just random assholes that matter so much, the Utah Jazzes of the world. And I think that's fun. I think that's where your most opportunity is when you have great data like Stokastic has, and hopefully some of the takes that Josh and I will give you throughout the course of this hour.
Yeah, we are about to break it down on a pretty wild day. If I, like, how much money would you have lost if I said, what are the odds? Like, if you needed to bet on the Wizards being a favorite this year after they traded Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole was out, they're 5-point favorites today. That is, I would have never seen that coming given how shit that team is. And yet here we are, Wizards 5-point favorites on the day. I'd have lost a lot of money betting against that.
Yeah, I mean, the Jazz, when it's really hard to tank as hard as the Jazz are, where they're literally not starting a single player who's rotationally relevant. I mean, Collier, I guess, is now, but in terms of what they went in with to start the year, nobody who mattered. So, yeah, who can lose harder? It seems like Washington's actually trying to win right now, which is hilarious because they're not doing anything helpful for anybody by doing that. But that's the name of the game, I guess.
Well, we're going to get to Washington in a bit, but we're going to start it off with teams that aren't the Washington Wizards or the Utah Jazz. We're going to start it off with the Portland Trailblazers, 9-point dogs in Boston, 224 total. This is the slowest game that I have on the slate by a full possession and a half. Now, for Portland, Jeremy Grant is questionable. Justin Minaya is questionable. If you're looking for information, you could ignore the moment it comes out of my mouth. DeAndre Ayton is out. Robert Williams is out. There is no ownership coming into Portland right now. 5%. It's the lowest amount of ownership to anybody on the slate. Oddly enough, we have 4 teams out of the 14 that are less than 10% owned in the aggregate. Portland is one of them. 3% ownership coming into Denny. Let's just ignore it if Jeremy Grant is in. If Jeremy Grant happens to be out, do you think that you're going to like Portland at all?
I think that Jeremy Grant would help out a little bit here. I already don't mind Denny as a play. With Jeremy Grant in actually getting about 15% of Avdija right now as kind of the bigger, rate winner of guys in court time without DeAndre Ayton. But I think really at this point, to me, like Simons doesn't really look playable. Sharp doesn't really look playable. I think if you get Grant out, those guys at least get to a playable range for me. But I don't think it becomes a must-have kind of play. And in fact, this game being so early, obviously we're talking about it first because it's one of the earliest in the slate. really don't know you want to lose a lot of flexibility for anybody in this game for some of the things that might open up. Like you literally could have Nikola Jokic out tonight and open up every possible Nuggets player. And that's one of the later games in the slate. The Thunder game could matter a lot late if you got weird things for the Grizzlies side of the equation. So I think you don't want to lose flexibility no matter what in this game. But yeah, if you get Grant out, like it does look better.
It does look better. I don't know what's going to look good. Like Denny probably ends up as like a 5 to 10% guy. I don't like Shaden Sharp becomes like more rosterable, but I don't even know if it's going to matter. I don't really want to get to anything here for Portland. Giant pace down spot. Even if there's no Grant here, I don't think we're creating anything that is useful in this group of 4 games where you want to lock in. I don't even have a name that would be fun. Like, can you play a 7K Anthony Simons today? I guess. I don't know why you would want to.
Yeah, I don't
Other than
often
the fact
get
that like
Simons.
Boston plays down to teams. That's the only thing that I could imagine. And even then, I don't really believe in what I'm saying.
I mean, Portland's been better than I think they get credit for. And in Boston, like you mentioned, like does play down sometimes in this total, obviously we haven't talked about the other side yet, but if you get one of these guys out, you get a better shot of maybe, them hanging around Boston if Tatum or Brown are out or both, especially. So look, I think there's a theoretical upside here, but in terms of projections, I wouldn't want to lose the flexibility for this game in particular, even though I think Avdia, like on most slates, would be probably a core play for me on this slate. There's just so many ways you can go and get guys who are 6x values instead of the 5 and change x value that I would have Avdia as at right now.
Then we get to Boston, who is basically not able to be talked about right now for the most part. Drew Holiday doubtful, Kristaps Porzingis doubtful, Jaylen Brown questionable, Jason Tatum questionable. So the 2 best players on Boston right now are questionable today. They're basically 15% owned apiece. If they're both in, they're the only guys I want for Boston, and I prefer Tatum to Brown. Let's just go with the assumption they're both in for now, even though I am pretty confident they're not both in.
Yeah, so I was getting more Tatum, and I'm just pulling in my sim now. So I'm still getting more Tatum here. Getting actually 32% Tatum, which is a pretty big stand in favor of him that I wasn't expecting to see here. I think he looks good. Getting the rate boost, obviously, from no Porzingis, no Drew Holiday, as Josh mentioned, those guys doubtful. So we assume they're not in. They're not in the projection set as a result. I think Tatum looks like a really strong play. I think Brown needs Tatum out for Brown himself to look like a good play. But I'm getting Brown with the field 14%. Fields that are rounded up 14. I think that's okay. But Tatum to me looks like a really strong play. And 1-2 you can afford with Giannis. You can afford with SGA. There's a way to make it work on the slate. So yeah, Tatum I think is really the only Celtic I like at this point.
Now, obviously, if one of those guys are out, whichever one isn't is a much better play than they are right now, and they're already the only guys that are getting any love. So if Tatum's out, Brown looks amazing. If Brown is out, Tatum looks amazing. I'm assuming we're on the same page there.
Yeah, same page.
Okay. If they're both out, then all bets are off for Boston because there's going to be a lot more crazy, dumb stuff to get to. Let's just go with the assumption that one of them will be out today, because I think that makes it a little bit easier to talk about this. I don't really think it matters too much which one is out for this discussion. We're talking about, 36 minutes getting lopped off here. Where do you want to go if one of these guys are out for Boston? Is that Derek White?
Yeah, I think it has to be Derek White. I mean, Derek White's a player I normally get a little bit of on slates where one of the, the key rotational Celtics are out. At this point, if you have Porzingis, you have Holiday out, you also have one of Tatum or Brown out. That's just so much usage that has to go somewhere. And obviously, Peyton Pritchard can clean up a little bit of it. Realistically, Derek White, I already have him at a 22% usage rate accounting for no Porzingis, no Holiday. That would come up more, probably, mid 20s, I would think, for the guys that could potentially not be here today. So yeah, I think White's priority number one. Pritchard, feel more comfortable for Pritchard if it were Jaylen Brown out, but he would theoretically, I think, get the same boosted minutes if Tatum didn't play as well. And besides that, I mean, somebody else I feel like should pop, especially if Tatum were out, but I don't really have a strong lean. I think Derek White would, and Peyton Pritchard, in my head, would be the strongest. And Horford, too, though the minutes seem kind of flighty there.
Yeah, obviously Hauser's going to take on a couple extra minutes. He's probably playing close to 30 at that point. I don't think we're going to get enough minutes projected to someone like Torrey Craig if one of these guys are out to matter. I think you would need both dudes out to end up getting to some of the weird Boston value. I think I would rank it White, Horford, Pritchard, Hauser as the guys that I would want to get to if one of the guys are out.
I think I would go White, Horford, Pritchard, and like Hauser too. I just don't think will ever project super highly for me, but I think White would get to be like a 40 fantasy point projection play for me if one of Tatum or Brown were out. Both especially.
It's one we got to keep very close eye on. I would not be surprised to see them both be out. I've got a 6.5 point gap between my line and the Vegas line. Could lead to both of them. Could also have a little bit to do with Jeremy Grant as well. Jason Tatum, 3 OddsShopper rating under 29.5 points on DraftKings. 3 OddsShopper rating under 10.5 points for Al Horford. Little scary to want to grab both of those right now just because of the status of Jaylen Brown. Because if Brown's out and Tatum's not, I'm guessing 29.5 becomes not a great line. So take that into account when you're looking at OddsShopper in the portfolio EV tool. The Boston side might look a little weird. Anything else for the Celts?
No, I mean, clearly a lot to know yet about this team, but as it is right now, I mean, Tatum looks like a great play and Brown looks like a decent play. So imagine how much better those guys will look if one of them is out.
Game number 2, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 8-point underdogs. Sorry, 8-point favorites. They would be insane if they were the underdogs here. 8-point favorites in Charlotte, 226 total. Got to talk through Minnesota here. I mean, every one of these teams is kind of like has a landmine to talk about. Mike Conley is out for rest. Rudy Gobert is still out. I actually thought he was going to be available to play today. Julius Randle, questionable for this one, which I didn't expect. We're getting north of 20% ownership to Julius Randle right now at 6,500. Not surprised to see that. I do think he looks like the best option for Minnesota if he's in. We're getting close to 20% on Ant, and then about 10 on Naz Reid. Clearly, the Randle news is massive here for the rest of what we do for Minnesota because they're in a good matchup. Do you think you're getting to Randle if he's in?
I'm getting him at 7% right now. Fields at 23. He does project to me like one of the better Wolves on the slate. The Naz Reid and him, I think, would be neck and neck for me. But yeah, I think Randall's not a bad play. I'm a little surprised to see him even be a Q tag at this point. Would have thought he'd be out for the back-to-back. But Randall, if he goes, clearly does impact things where Anthony Edwards' ceiling gets a little bit lower, even though he'll still be owned a decent amount. I think Randall himself, too cheap, being under 7K, I would say. So he is unfortunately a good player that's worth probably being chalk again for the second straight day. But yeah, I think the issue for me is like if Randall's in, I think the ceiling is lower for most of these guys, maybe Ant's aside. And if Randall is out, I think the team actually looks kind of playable because the down pay spot versus Charlotte is just not normally where you want to be. And especially too for, again, another one of the first games in the slate, losing that flexibility. It's just not a great enough spot if Randall's in.
I only have 5%, so you and I are on the same page here, but he does look like a really solid option at 6,500, especially if he can fall back into those 34 minutes he got in his return game. I think he would look a little interesting. How do you feel about Ant here at 9,300? Because he's kind of like splitting the difference between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I'm curious about Ant. Like, I think that he is in a good situation here. You know, last time out yesterday for them, not one of his better showings overall, but I would have him at just shy of 46 fantasy points today. So he's not looking like a great, value play overall. But I do think on a slate where, he'll be less owned if, let's say, Tatum plays and Brown both play somehow. I think he doesn't project as well as Tatum, but clearly similar upside. If Charlotte keeps it competitive on their end, you're probably getting Anthony Edwards on 4 quarters of pretty efficient production. It's a defense that's not very good, even if they are slow. So I like the concept of Ant, but I'm only getting there at 7% right now. So it's not a big stand, but like I agree that he is, conceptually an interesting play. He just would look better, I think, if you eliminate some other players in that price point or get Randall out of the lineup, especially.
Yeah, I only got to 10% here, and that's all I have of these Minnesota guys. The 5% of Randall, the 10% of Edwards. I don't have any Naz Reid. I think it's going to be pretty important to see whether or not Randall is in or out, because at that point, we're giving more minutes to Shannon, to Clark. I'm guessing we look a little bit differently at the rates for Naz Reid or Jaden McDaniels, but I think Randall's the best play if he's in. I'd prefer to get to Ant, but it doesn't seem like I'm going to be getting to a lot of Minnesota here, and I'm kind of okay with it. We do have an 8 OddsShopper rating on Jaden McDaniels right now, under 6.5 rebounds on DraftKings. Because the OddsShopper rating's so high, I don't mind taking it right now, but McDaniels' rebound prop will look a little bit better if Julius Randle happens to be out. You'd be cheering for Randle to be in then, in that particular case. Do you have anything else you want to touch on for the Wolves?
I see the chat saying Randall's only going to play like 20 minutes. He played 30 yesterday. So, I mean, obviously, back-to-back could be a little bit lower, but he's back. He's not to the full run of minutes like Josh mentioned. He's not getting, mid-30s, but he's getting real runs. So, like, if Randall plays, you expect him to play real minutes. And if he doesn't play, obviously, that matters a lot. But, yeah, like, Randall's back in the rotation. So, I think people might miss that.
If he's playing regular minutes. If you think that isn't correct, then I highly recommend you bet his unders, because those will be the best bets you'll ever seen in your own mind. So I don't agree with it, but if you think that he's playing 20 minutes, then the best thing that you could do today is max bet his unders.
Confirmation bias works really well in betting.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. Perfect. Charlotte Hornets have Yusuf Nurkic probable. Nick Smith is available. There is no ownership here. Charlotte is just like Portland, completely unowned across the board. Is there anything you want to get to for Charlotte? I do think there's one weird talking point, but for the most part, these guys look awful.
I'm curious your one weird talking point. I'm not getting much here. I'm getting 2x the field on Yusuf Nurkic, which I get is kind of a value pivot to some of the other 3K centers out there, but really not a big stand there. I frankly am surprised that Miles Bridges got there last time out with LaMelo in, because normally I play Bridges when LaMelo's out because there's so much usage go around. Bridges, I don't really get to here, but I do think it's compelling to me at that price tag to see him actually have a ceiling. And Mark Williams, I think, looks like an okay play. It's just there's a lot better center plays in the slate. So I don't mind these guys, especially with Gobert out for a guy like Mark Williams, but nobody here comes up that much besides, again, Nurkic being a somewhat owned value.
Yeah, so Nurkic is the guy that I think is kind of weird today. 3,900 is a price tag that's kind of wild for him because he's such a good per minute guy. He's also live to not step foot on the floor and just get a straight DNP. For some reason, he got back into the rotation and played 15 minutes as the backup center last time out. It had been Moussa Diabate as that guy. I don't know if it's going to be Diabate. I don't know if it's going to be Nurkic. I don't know if it's going to be both of them potentially, and then they both suck. But the path to Nurkic just sort of being the backup center is at least a little interesting because of his price. You got to be ready to get a straight zero if he doesn't show up on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting
guy because
he's getting a lot of
backup, he might play 18 minutes and look good.
Yeah, I mean, like
I just don't know if he's going to play.
His rates are really high on the Hornets so far. Like, the court time without Brennan Miller, Trey Mance, guys that don't really affect Nurkic. 39% assist rate, 22% rebound rate. I would have him at 1.3 fantasy points per minute today. So I'm with you. Like, if he gets the minutes, it's okay. This rotation's been getting jerked around a little bit that I wouldn't trust it as much as I would, Tristan Vukovic, Oscar Tshiebwe. If we're doing the backup center power rankings, I think I have a little bit less trust for Nurkic with where he is.
I'd find him very interesting if Diabate were out as a punt option. Without him being in, I think it gets kind of difficult. But I mean, otherwise, there's not a damn thing on this Hornets team that looks good.
Yep.
Not even close. 4 OddsShopper rating on your boy, Miles Bridges, under 7.5 rebounds. I'd take that right now because we're not really waiting on anything for Charlotte. And then under 11.5 rebounds has a 3 OddsShopper rating for Mark Williams. First one's on DraftKings, second one's on BetMGM. So yeah, I'd be happy to bet against the Hornets here. It feels good. You know what else feels good? Watching 3 straight hours of NBA content on these Stokastic channels, because we're here for an hour for the deeper dive. Greg and Eric are going to be here for Live Before Lock from 6 to 7. One of the more important Live Before Locks that you're going to get since we have 4 games locking at that point. And then you get to hang out with Greg and I on Playback, playback.tv/Stokastic. We're watching games. We're talking ownership, late swaps, bets, maybe something fun for the viewers that might want to look into Portfolio EV. Might have a promo code for you. Don't want to confirm it or not. Just tune in to Playback. So for right now, it's 5:20. We have 2 hours and 40 minutes of straight coverage, breaking down everything that's happening today. You don't want to miss it. So stay right here, hit the like button on this video, and make sure you're popping over to Playback to watch the games along with us. Totally free, by the way. Miami Heat are 12-point dogs in Cleveland, 221 total. Miami is obviously walking wounded. I thought Cleveland was going to sit somebody on the back-to-back. They didn't, which was kind of weird to me. Tyler Hero is questionable. Jaime Jaquez is out. Obviously, Nikola Jovic is out. Your boy Davion Mitchell is questionable. Khalil Ware is already out. Andrew Wiggins is already out. And with all of that news, we have no ownership at all coming into Miami, another one of the teams that are sub 10%. But if Tyler Hero happens to be out, I can't imagine we're not getting to a bunch of Miami here.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. If Hero's out, you're talking about opening up like 55% of the possessions when he's on the court between his assist rate and his usage. So I think that, that matters a lot right now. as it is, I'm getting a lot of Duncan Robinson, at least relatively for the slate. Getting him at 17% of my lineups right now, with him projected to play about 30 minutes by Stokastic. At this point for Miami, it's still a crowded enough rotation. I'm not buying the Kevin Love value. I took that leap the other night when he was a starter. He does come up in some positive ROI lineups with Stokastic, so I don't want to fully poo-poo him. But he started last game, played the first quarter, played the third quarter, didn't play the second quarter stint or the fourth quarter stint. It's a little bit tough to get to. But I'm with you. If Hero's out, it looks a lot better as it is right now. Duncan Robinson is a minutes play. You can maybe spike an upside. I'm cool with it. But everybody else here, not that great of a total. And Cleveland at full strength seems like they should be able to boat race Miami, even if the spread doesn't fully say that out loud.
Yeah, I'm willing to get to Hero or Bam here, even at no ownership. I think Duncan Robinson's fine if you want to take that flyer. I think Kyle Anderson is fine if you want to take that flyer, because most of these guys are awful per minute guys. Davion Mitchell, terrible. Duncan Robinson, not exactly great. Highsmith, terrible. Alec Burks, basically terrible. Rozier's a 0.8 guy. Pelle Larson is a 0.7 guy. But Anderson's going to be 0.9, somewhere in that neighborhood. He'd be the guy that I'd be looking to the most here. And then if Hero is out, hell, if Hero and Mitchell are out, it starts to get really weird. I just don't know who it's going to I mean, starting lineup will matter. You'll probably look a little bit at Alec Burks. Duncan Robinson will improve for sure. What do you think happens if Hero's out? Do you have any interest in Bam at that point?
Oh, I think Bam already looks pretty good to me. I'm just not getting him very much because of the price point and the fact I'm at a 45 and change projection, actually almost 46, but it's not quite enough at his price tag to get there. If Hero's out, I think with the rate boost I would give, I would probably get Bam, maybe 10 to 20%. I think the price tag is still not great, but I think you could see the upside more really. And I do think Davion Mitchell plays for what it's worth. He did say to the media this morning he was going to play. So not that that always matters, but if I had to guess, Hero more likely to not play with him being a midday downgrade, not being in shoot around. Mitchell at shoot around talking to media. I think he probably plays.
I'm assuming he does. We shall see. I hope he doesn't. Just let's get Miami to be weird as hell. I'm all for it.
Not quite Dallas levels, but they would be close if they did have both those guys out.
It's going to get really dicey for Dallas over these next couple of weeks, considering they can't sign a single human being to play basketball for them, no matter what, for a month. If anything bad starts, like if Kai Jones rolls his ankle, Dwight Powell's going to have to play like 28 minutes a night. I mean, they are just doomed for the next month.
Are there not injury exemptions like at a certain point for them?
It doesn't matter. So
really?
So they will get an injury exemption for Kyrie Irving, but because they are so close to the first apron, they can't use it no matter what, because that salary will still count against the first apron. So they can't sign anybody no matter what. They are full stop locked out till April 10th.
Is there a point where they would, like, if they don't have 8 guys who are active, they would have to sign somebody and hit the apron, wouldn't they? Like, they don't want to hit the apron, but they can.
I don't think they can't. No, they legitimately can't.
Oh, okay. I thought it was that they don't want it. That it just accelerates their luxury tax stuff.
No, they can't. They can't cross the first apron to sign a player right now.
Huh.
No matter what. It's bad, dude. It's so bad.
Seems a little broken. Like,
I believe it's April 10th. Yeah. Well, I mean, they put themselves in that position though. Like, they didn't have to put themselves in a position where they had no first apron wiggle room.
True. I mean, Nico doing a great job. Yeah, Kai Jones, I mean, he's questionable today, and he's their 9th man, so they're legit down to 8.
They're like $10,000 or something really crazy below it. Like, so much. So it's such a little amount that even a 10-day contract will put them in the first apron.
It's crazy.
It's gross.
Bad team management.
It's bad. So I mentioned Miami's not pulling any ownership. Oddly enough, they're more owned than Cleveland. Miami is at 9% total. Cleveland is at 6%. 1 to Mitchell, 2 to Garland, 2 to Mobley, 1 to Allen. Do you want a Cleveland Cavalier?
No, honestly, not really getting anybody above 1.5%. I'm getting Mobley and Garland, the barest of amounts here. Nobody looks that good. I also thought somebody would be out here today, but nobody out. Ty Jerome getting squeezed as well because they're already being healthy and full go. So yeah, Cleveland, we can save time. Not a high pace spot, not a high total spot. Don't really know why you'd go to Cleveland here. Besides low ownership, maybe, if you wanted to try that.
Yeah, like if you're playing 150 lineups and Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland that ends up in your lineup, you shouldn't like try to fix it or anything. They're just not going to end up in your lineups all that much because they don't look good at all. Giant pace down spot for Cleveland. is a team that, is going to play their starters 30 minutes in a competitive game. Usually I have absolutely nothing for Cleveland. I have no other words for them.
Yeah. They're all close to playable, but they're not like actively
Yeah.
playable. It's like, yeah, I'm on that.
Well, the problem for wanting to get to Cleveland is that we have the Utah Jazz as 5-point underdogs in Washington with a 230 total. The Jazz are 122% owned right now. So for reference sake, all 6 teams that we've talked about so far are at 132. Washington as a whole is more owned than every team we've talked about so far. This is the game. There's more ownership going to this game than any other game, and it's not close because Jordan Clarkson is out. John Collins is out. Walker Kessler is out. Lauri Markkanen is out. Colin Sexton is out. Jaden Springer is out. Keontae George is questionable, which makes it even crazier. Call it 35% ownership to Kyle Filipowski and Bryce Sensabaugh. 20 more for Keontae George, and we don't even know if he's playing. 10 more for Isaiah Collier and Oscar Tshiebwe. The floor is yours, brother. Go wherever you want to go for this Utah Jazz team.
I think they're in a great spot today. It would be the first thing here. You're just missing so many core parts of the lineup. This is also a situation too where normally people don't really know how to assign things, and where you have stochastic data or a really smart projection set, you kind of can play these players a little more confidently. So I'll say that out loud because I know sometimes people see these spots and they go, I'm not even going to deal with it. You really need to deal with it here in this particular matchup with a not bad total versus the Washington team that's not really good. So Filipowski, I like the most right now, getting him in 38% of my lineups. I know Josh vocalized some concerns. I'm still getting Oscar Tshiebwe in 21%. So would not play those guys together. Filipowski can play a few minutes at the 4 alongside Tshiebwe theoretically, but they've been largely using him as the backup 5. So he should be good. I think Filipowski crushes in the spot, like the matchup. I know Josh on the strategy show this morning mentioned he does like Alex Sarr more. I think the projections out there, a lot of people like Sarr more. I am very much team Filipowski here, and the ownership has gone more Filipowski's way. So I'm not alone there. Sensabaugh looks great as well. The thumbnail I have for my splash play channel over my shoulder, that's Bryce Sensabaugh's face right here. He looks good today as well, getting the minutes basically from not having Sexton in. If Keontae George is out as well, Sensabaugh I think becomes a must play. If Keontae George plays, he looks good. Collier, I'm the least in on, but Josh, I think there's a cornucopia of options here. So what's your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I have more of Filipowski than anybody else. He's in 2x my lineups. He's got a lot more minutes to his projection now than he did when I did them this morning, which, I was flying blind at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not surprised. Sarr looking a little bit less interesting as well. So Filipowski's getting more ownership. Completely agree with it at this point. So I'm right there with you on Filipowski. Neutral to the field on Bryce Sensabaugh. That guy's just going to chuck. The minutes are there. The price is fine. The matchup's obviously awesome. Keontae George is my biggest stand in terms of like getting over a lower owned guy because he's 20%. I got 35. Gonna need him to be in though. Otherwise, it's gonna look a little weird. Then we're probably getting to like Svi Mikhailiuk after that, or Cody Williams can probably get enough minutes at that point to be clickable, I guess. I'm light on Isaiah Collier, which is a little weird, but I think it's just because Keontae George looks better than him. I wouldn't mind getting a bit more Collier at this point. I didn't get any of Oscar Tshiebwe though.
I mean, I get it. Like Filipowski to me is the much better option there, where he's had a tangible ceiling. He's put up 50 fantasy points in a game, but Tshiebwe is producing at a 1.2 fantasy point per minute pace. In particular, the rebounding's been good for him. So I prefer Vukovic to Tshiebwe on the other side of this equation. If we're doing the backup center power rankings, which are actually pretty viable on the slate. But look, Utah's got a lot of guys here. They all look good. And I'm with you. Collier just looks the worst out of all of them, but even he will look good if Keontae George is out.
Tyler Hero out.
Oh boy. It's it'll be a fun slate.
Dude, we have multiple flat 3K center only guys today, and Oscar Tshiebwe, Tristan Vukcevic. If you want to, like, he's not flat 3K, but like Kevin Love, Yusuf Nurkic, we got a lot of options of backup shit centers today, and some of them are getting a lot of ownership.
And yeah, if you find your value somewhere else and go over the top of the Jokic or somebody like that, even a Hartenstein, if he were to put up 50, that's your tournament game theory there.
Assuming George plays, do you have any interest in Kenyon Martin, Johnny Juzang, or Cody Williams?
No, I don't think so. These guys don't look like they're getting enough minutes in the projection, and frankly, they don't produce well enough. Like Utah, for what it's worth, like they have a kind of clearly defined pecking order when the guys are gone. You get Keontae George getting shots up, you get Sensabaugh getting shots up, you get Filipowski getting shots up. Juzang will shoot a little bit, Svi will shoot a good amount off the bench, but they don't seem to want to use him for a full amount of run. I think it's pretty clearly defined here. But and the randomest, weirdest of things happening, KJ Martin having an outlier day, nobody playing him. That is NBA DFS in a nutshell sometimes. So I wouldn't poo-poo anybody wanting to play him, but I think it's more defined for the guys that are, up here and guys who are down here.
Man, if Keontae George gets ruled out, this is going to look even crazier because we're going to get more than the 20% E-zoned redistributed to these guys. So buckle up for Utah. Now we get to do the exact same conversation for the Washington Wizards, only they look even better than that. This is Keontae George versus Keyshawn George. Interesting battle of the Georgi. Rashawn Holmes out. Jordan Poole out. Here we go. 35% ownership. The most owned guy on the Washington Wizards is backup center Tristan Vukcevic. He is flat 3K, center only. Jason Tatum out.
Oh,
Jaylen Brown in. Obviously, Porzingis and Drew Holiday out. Derek White.
That is silly slate. Silly.
I have 85% of Tristan Vukcevic. Do you care to talk about that one?
42, and I feel pretty good about that. Like, I love Tristan Vukcevic. Like, I think, do we know, is it officially Vukcevic, or I feel like I think I've heard the announcer say Vukcevic. Okay. Because I go Vukovic, but I would like to know, because we're gonna say his name a lot. I've been waiting for this guy to get real minutes. Vukcevic? Okay, so you got it right. All right. Yeah. So Vukcevic, we'll start saying that correctly now. He's been a great producer, 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. Alex Sarr, since his return, which I think our guy Steven Leibovitz in chat pointed out on my Splash Play stream before this, hasn't played more than 26 minutes since his return so far. And I'm trusting Steven on this because I didn't go back afterwards, but Steven usually doesn't lie about things. So I think we're good there. Not playing big minutes for Sarr. I think Sarr, you would project him to have about 30 minutes today. But if he doesn't get there, that's probably all the other minutes going to Vukcevic. And he's producing well. He gets good usage. He has a good rebound rate, even gets some assists. He fits that kind of mini Jokic criteria that, Şengün would be towards the middle of the spectrum of mini Jokic. Vukcevic, I'd say down a little bit lower. But he produces really well. So it's a lot of ownership for a backup. At that point, you probably should just get a little more Alex Sarr and hope the starter plays a few more minutes. But Vukcevic is great, and Ian Shibwe has a lot of ownership for 3K centers. That's silly. It's a crazy slate. It really is. It's so much fun.
What do you want to do with $5,100 Alex Sarr? Because he's 20% owned.
I have him really lowly projected. So this is my concern point is I have Vukcevic projected well. I have Sarr projected for only 26 fantasy points. Stokastic's at 31. Sarr, just the rates don't really support. Like, he doesn't do any better with Jordan Poole, Brogdon, Kyle Kuzma, your high usage guys off the court who are not going to be available today / aren't on the team anymore. So I'm just not going to get to Sarr, and I'm okay with it. But when you see that much ownership go into the backup center, you should probably play the starter. Like, that's kind of a DFS principle. So I have no issue with Sarr for you guys. He doesn't project well enough for me. I only got him in 4% of lineups. Everybody else, I'm getting 15, 20% of. Justin Champagny, I'm getting 50% of. Is that correct? Oh my God, getting 50% Champagny. Get a lot in this game, Josh. Getting too much in this game.
I have 45% of Champagny. I have 45% of Chris Middleton. I'm a little bit under on Keyshawn George, so I'm more of a Keontae guy today. I'm a little Keontae. I can't do it through my teeth, but you know what I mean. I'm not getting any Koulibaly. I'm barely getting any Bub Carrington. No Kispert for me. No Smart for me. My biggest stands are Middleton, Champagny, and Vukcevic, but I like Sarr. I'm right around the field here, and if I get to lock and I'm at $5,500 Filipowski in 70 and Sarr in 20, I'm going to knock a little bit off of Filipowski and bump Sarr a little bit because I think that gap is a little bit too wide.
I think that's reasonable. I'm low on Sarr, and I feel very vulnerable doing it because, like, really logistically, it's too much ownership for a backup center for Vukcevic. No matter how much I love him, no matter how much people have, checked the box scores, they want to play him. The starter should have more ownership, so you should be with the field at the very least on Alex Sarr and 21% owned, I think.
Do you like anything else for the Wiz? Anybody you want to touch on? Or are you looking at Koulibaly or Bub Carrington at all?
No, I'm surprised I'm not getting more Koulibaly, but I think that he's an okay play. I'm only getting him at 2%, though. I don't think the rate's supported. I would have thought he would get more usage, but seems like he kind of flattens out about a 20% usage guy. So I'm not seeing that there. Look, whoever you want to make a case for in Washington, you can. Like Middleton, I think it's tough to trust the minutes being where you want it to go, but he's produced at like a 1.35 fantasy point per minute pace with Jordan Poole off the court. Obviously, not a big sample size. So really, Washington, it's such a soft matchup, and the total's good enough. Play any wizard you want, but the ones that are highest owned are highest owned for a reason.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Best game you can get to, guys. Make sure you're grabbing it. But we did just create more value. Jeremy Grant is out today.
What a fun slate.
You guys can save yourselves all the trouble by clicking the link in the description or the one in chat. Sign up. Get yourself the Sims tool for nothing. You don't have to pay us a cent. You get it for a month if you sign up through one of our partners, whether it's a pick'em site or a sportsbook. If you don't want to deal with all of this nonsense, we've got you covered. We've got the projections updates, the ownership updates. Run the Sims, enter in our lineups, profit. That should be the goal. But you can do all of that for no cost whatsoever. You'll make a deposit into one of our partners. They're going to give you some sort of bonus bets or deposit bonus or something. And then you're going to email us and let us know what you did, show us a couple screenshots. We're going to give you a month free of the Stokastic Sims. Or if you want Portfolio EV and the OddsShopper tool, same situation. Sign up through one of those partners. And they stack. You want to grab 3 or 4 of them if you've never signed up at those sites? You can get 3 or 4 months for no cost to Stokastic. You won't pay us a dime at that point. Projections, ownership, boom, bust, all of the Sims tools, premium Discord, and more. For these kind of days, with all of this late news, this is where you want to be. Best in the industry, and you can get it for no cost whatsoever. Come on in, click the link, and sign up. Sunflower with the super chat. Which 3 players from each team project for the most minutes? Collier, George, Filipowski, Koulibaly, Carrington, and George.
I thought he meant every team on the slate. I was like, what is...
No, I would have not done that. I would have not done that. So let's keep it moving. We'll go to game number 5, Dallas Mavericks, 11-point dogs in Milwaukee, 225 total. Dallas is getting some ownership because they are missing everybody now. No, Anthony Davis, Dante Exum, Daniel Gafford, Jaden Hardy, Kyrie Irving, Derek Lively, PJ Washington. Caleb Martin's doubtful, and didn't take long to get this one. Kai Jones, questionable, left quad strain. We've got 50% ownership coming into a $5,100 Spencer Dinwiddie, 20 to Max Christie, 10 to Marshall, 10 to Clay, 10 to Brandon Williams. I have 85% Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he's the best play on the slate.
Okay, so you really threw that one at me. I'm getting Dinwiddie a good amount. I'm getting Dinwiddie at 59%. He's one of those guys, too, where I really thought he was going to be like 28% usage in court time without Luka, Kyrie, and PJ Washington. It's actually more like 20% usage, 25% assist rate. So it's a jump up, but it's not like a super ball dominant jump up. Dinwiddie doesn't become the old really good Dinwiddie. He just becomes a slightly better version of himself. So I think he's a good play. I think he's going to be in a lot of lineups. Again, he's in 59% of mine, but I don't think he should be in everything. The guy I think should be in everything is Max Christie. And I will say, like, one thing I tend to overrate in my projections is guys who, produce in every category. Quentin Grimes has been one that was there a lot. But now you see when Quentin Grimes' opportunity, he's starting to do the thing that I think my data would support. Max Christie, same thing. I know Josh mentioned it this morning on the strategy show. Guy should probably play 38 minutes today in terms of being a competent defender, does a little bit of everything, and is a body that they can put in different situations. He probably won't get, in the projection set that many minutes, but he can get there. I have him at 0.9 fantasy points a minute, court time without Luka, without Kyrie, without PJ Washington. I think he is a strong play as well. I'm getting him in 77% of my lineup. So those are the big 2. Nobody else here, Josh, for me, above 11%, getting Najee Marshall at 11 and a little bit of Omax, a little bit of these guys. But I think it's Christie and Dinwiddie, and I prefer Christie.
I agree that it's Christie and Dinwiddie. You're definitely wrong that it's Christie over Dinwiddie, but they both look good. They're both top 10 plays. What do you have Christie projected for? Hold on, let me guess. 34.5.
36.1.
Okay, yeah. So that's crazy. Dinwiddie is the man here, but I'm neutral to the field on Christie. I do like the upside. Probably like him even a little bit more if Kai Jones ends up out, because then it's just, you're down to 8 dudes. It's more like Christie just has to get a couple extra minutes at that point, you would think. He looks great. I mean, shooting guard, small forward is awesome. Probably somewhere in that like 0.9, 0.95 range for this game. The value looks awesome. I have no problem getting to him. You should want to get him. No problem with the stand. Maybe slightly too high of a projection, but I like the shout out. Those two guys are very clearly the best two options for Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, it's also too like you're just missing guys like Jaden Hardy now as well, who could at least get a shot, heat up from three. Christie, this team can shoot. Like you got a lot of guys who are like 55 to 60% true shooting, which the lower half of that is league average. But like Christie's a good shooter. Klay Thompson's still good enough. Najee good enough, even though he's bricked some recently on slates. Like these guys can hit some shots. I love Dallas. This is like my favorite kind of slate, man. I'm like giddy with how many shitty players we're gonna get to play today.
There are more reasons you're like giddy, but we won't touch on them for the rest of this show. If Kai Jones happens to be out, how much of Kessler Edwards, Omax, Dwight Powell are we going to be doing today? Because that's 28 minutes that have to go to the other 7 guys that are left on this team.
I think Omax would start to look better for me because I do have him averaging about 1 fantasy point and change. So he would suck up a few more minutes there. He's a guy that can knock down some shots, rebounds at that point. I think he'd actually technically be the best rebounder on the team with a 12% and change rebound rate. So I think Omax would become a guy that moves up. Dwight Powell, I just don't think can play big enough minutes no matter what. Like I feel like his best case scenario is getting mid 20s. Maybe there's a world where he can get more. The guy that I'm most intrigued by that I'm just not getting a lot of, I'm actually really low in him. I know you said he's going to be about 10% owned, but Brandon Williams, if this game gets weird, if like Dinwiddie doesn't play well, if they just get their ass kicked, Brandon Williams is probably going to get up a lot of shots, and he's a good shooter, and he's averaged about 0.8 and change fantasy points per minute. So I think you could pick your poison for the Mavs, really. But if Kai Jones is out, I think Kessler Edwards and Omax in play.
Yeah. I'll like Powell at that point, too, because if you project him for 24 minutes, that's like 5.4x salary at 3,800. Just add him to the list of sub 4K centers that are at least reasonable to click on. Because, look, they got to play 240 minutes today, one way or the other. So if they only have 8 guys, we're going to look at something. By the way, just in case you want to get some bets down on Caesars, 2 of them look great. Max Christie under 3.5 assists has a 4 OddsShopper rating. Max Christie under 23.5 PRA has a 3 OddsShopper rating. So if you want to fade Spags, there's 2 great bets out there on our Portfolio EV tool. We go to the Milwaukee side of this one. Giannis probable, Kuzma probable, Dame probable. Gary Trent is out for this one. Doesn't really matter all that much. 5% ownership to Dame. Everybody else is less than that, save for Giannis, who's at 20. And that's insane to me. It's obviously going to come up with this value. He's in 90% of my stuff. I don't know how you don't get to Giannis today. He might as well be free. You put him in at power forward. And who stops him? Kai Jones? Dwight Powell? Yeah, we're out of real human beings here. Give me all of the Giannis.
Yeah, I'm getting 70% Giannis, and I still think Jokic is a good play. I still think SGA is a good play late, especially with that crazy high total for OKC. So, like, I'm a little bit worried about having entirely too much Giannis, but I did notice some lineups I have getting Giannis with another pay-up guy. There's enough value to go around the slate to do that. But I agree, like, Giannis is a strong play. He gains in usage from not having Portis and Middleton out there. Kyle Kuzma is not filled in at a similar rate. Giannis actually gains in rebounding as well from not having Portis and Middleton out there as well. And Damian Lillard, a little bit less usage. It's going to balance out, but does get a little bit less usage, a little bit less assists upside. Those guys. So Giannis from the Bucks team they have now, like he's your big winner. He's playing a really bad Dallas team that can't stop him if he tries to go to the rim. Like Dwight Powell might turn into dust. They just have nothing they can do to stop this. So I like Giannis a lot. I just think the game theory of it is like you want to get some Jokic, you want to get some SGA because the field's going to be able to get to Giannis really easily, and they might be afraid about that Jokic Q tag as well if it drags out.
And don't forget, a little bit earlier, we got Jason Tatum out, so we don't even have that 10K guy anymore. We have a much better 8K Jaylen Brown. So, yeah, to me, it's Giannis and everything. I don't have anything else that I would possibly want to talk about for the rest of Milwaukee. Do you want any Dame?
I would probably, I did this yesterday, and unfortunately Dame sucked, but it still got me unique enough, like boosting Dame, boosting Lopez and lineups without where Giannis doesn't hit. I think doing that still a logical thing that I can do. So I don't mind the concept of getting to Dame. It's just because like people will get to Giannis pretty easily, and we'll do it at a pretty good rate of ownership. But they don't project that well. You're just kind of doing it again to get unique. And if somehow Giannis fails, it's more likely that Lillard, Kuzma, maybe Kuzma, Lillard and Lopez, I would say had an outlier day.
Alrighty, let's keep this one moving. Go to Sacramento. 6-point dogs in Denver, 234 total. Got some injuries in this one as well that we need to pay attention to. Domantas Sabonis already out. Josh Green ruled out for Charlotte. I don't even think he was on the injury report, was he?
Who?
Josh Green was ruled out for Charlotte. He was not even on the injury report. He's out for an illness. Nurkic available to play. Anyway.
All right. More wing minutes.
Malik Monk, questionable. Sabonis out. We're getting 10% ownership to Levine and DeRozan, 25 to Joval, and 30 to Keon Ellis. Plus a little bit to Markelle Fultz. Who's your favorite Sacramento King?
I think it's Keon Ellis. I presume he's just stepping right into Malik Monk's role. He's been playing the minutes Malik Monk doesn't play, plus a little bit on top of that. So I think he becomes a starter here. Stokastic, thankfully, on the same page. I gave him 31 minutes. I think you could potentially give him like 34 and not feel that bad about that. But Ellis, I'm getting in 47% of my lineups. Fields at 31%. He does gain a little bit in rates. Obviously, you have no De'Aaron Fox anymore on the team. You have no Sabonis. You have no Malik Monk. So Ellis becoming the best version of himself with about 17% usage, a little bit more in terms of the assist upside and the rebounding upside. I think he looks good here. Not so much on J-Val today. I think they're better center plays in terms of value, but he can theoretically get you to low 30s minutes with the minutes he was on pace to play last game before that game blew out. And, Levine, DeRozan, I think also okay plays as well, but Ellis is like the priority play here because he will make a lot of lineups work with that salary and being locked into a good 30 plus minutes.
When the hell did I miss the Malik Monk news?
It was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock East Coast time.
Really?
Yeah. Push. Okay. Well, a professional would have caught that news.
He's questionable in the 4 p.m. injury report. Like he
got ruled out.
I've had 18 minutes to update from 4 to 5, which I hadn't done because I hadn't gotten to the Kings and I hadn't seen it. But in the 4 p.m. injury report, he's questionable. That's why I said it. He's out in the 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 3 hours ago. 1:51 is when the alerts went up.
Yeah. The only reason I said it that way is because in the 4:30 injury report, he was not out. So, which makes sense. Like, that's why Keon Ellis is getting 30% ownership. I'm not surprised when I look at it, but I just read off the injury report. Interesting. I'm neutral on Ellis. I'm neutral on Joval. We'll see how that ends up with all this news that's been coming out. 6,400 is a real price tag at that point. I don't mind getting any shares of Levine or DeRozan either. What do you want to do with Fultz?
He looks okay. I just think he's getting not enough run here. I mean, he's producing 0.83 fantasy points a minute on the year. I'd have him at 0.84 today with some of the extra upside that's available. But Stokastic only has him playing about 19 minutes, so it's not really enough to get there. If I'm going to play somebody that cheap, I'll play one of the centers who's a point and change fantasy point minute producer. But Fultz is, I think, in play. He's your pivot points with Chalky Ellis. So if he somehow got more minutes, Ellis would probably be the one who loses them.
5 OddsShopper rating under 14.5 PRA on Trey Lyles right now. If you want to take that one, bank on Joval getting the minutes today. Ugh. And we got to get to Denver. Q-tag Vlatko Chanchar. Welcome back. Q-tag Aaron Gordon. Q-tag Nikola Jokic. Q-tag Zeke Naji. Q-tag Peyton Watson. Julian Strother is out. Obviously, we need the news here. It's kind of hard to talk about Denver. Be ready to late swap. If Jokic is out, we're going to be freeing up another flat 3K center that looks incredible today in DeAndre Jordan. $3,300. Zeke Naji probably starts looking pretty damn good at that point too. But I think the easier way to talk about this is just simply, if Jokic is in, what do you want to do with Denver? Otherwise, I don't think we really have any hypotheticals.
If Jokic is in right now, and this is obviously with the sim being run before Tatum got ruled out, I was getting 22% Jokic. So like I mentioned, I love Giannis as a play, but I want to make sure to carve out some out for Jokic here. And then if Jokic is out, then you can swap one more time, hopefully to an SGA if you have Jokic in your flex, which is where he'll most likely be for me. So I think with Jokic, 5th of my lineups feels good. He's not as great of a play on his face as a guy like Giannis is. If Aaron Gordon were out, I think Jokic would look a little bit more worth getting to the full pay up option there as a pretty similar value to Giannis. But I think Jokic looks really strong here. Everybody else, not so much. And if Jokic is out, DeAndre Jordan's probably getting you 25 minutes at the very least, maybe 28. Everybody else here looks better. So key decision point right now. And as Josh mentioned, DeAndre Jordan, I think probably be your best value because he would be getting starter minutes as opposed to backup minutes like the other 3K guys.
Yeah, it's just too hard to continue to talk about Denver in this case because everything is different if Jokic is out. And then we still have to worry about like, oh, well, what if Gordon and Watson and Najee are also joining Jokic on the sidelines? So Denver, get ready. Might be a hell of a late swap spot.
Mhm.
2,000 people, 215 likes. No reason that can't be 300 immediately. 85 of the 1,800 people that haven't done it yet should hit that thumbs up. 185 of you can get that number up to 400 for the Live Before Lock crew. We're going to be here in about 10 minutes. So hit that like button. Don't forget, sign up. And just in case you don't want to sign up at another spot, like if you don't want to sign up through a partner, but you do want to check out that portfolio EV tool, if you've never signed up at OddsShopper before, you can get it for a week as a trial for free. We have a 7-day free trial of the portfolio EV tool. If you've never signed up, you could take advantage of that. Maybe that's what you want to do. Come in for a week, do the test, figure out if you like it. And then once you find out that you absolutely like it, because you will, then take advantage of one of the sign-up offers and grab yourself another month. Very easy. Link in the description. Final game of the DraftKings slate. Oklahoma City Thunder. 8-point favorites in Memphis. 252 total. Man, I wish Triple J could be healthy for this one. This sucks. Caruso out. Chet out. Aaron Wiggins questionable. Isaiah Hartenstein available. 40% ownership coming into Shea. Call it 15 for Jalen Williams, Kaysen Wallace, and Isaiah Hartenstein. It's not just Giannis that's in a bunch of my stuff. I've got 50% of Shea.
Okay. I was hoping you're going to say Hartenstein. I have 20% Hartenstein. He's my biggest stand here. I think he gains the most overall getting to Stokastic only has it for 28 and a half minutes. I think in some of the games, including last time that they played Memphis, he got to low 30s minutes. Previously, he was still high 20s before. So he's getting you high 20s to low 30s no matter what. The rates come up. The rebound comes up a little bit from not having Chet out there. I think at his price tag, he works. He's also not terribly highly owned at 11.5%. And keeping him in my lineups as well gives me some flexibility because we have a lot of potential late swapping. So Hartenstein to me is a play that I like the most. SGA is getting owned a lot more now, projected for 40% ownership in the most recent run of data. I only got 16%, or actually no, 19%. It's going to move up a little bit from having Tatum out, I would think. No issue with SGA, as I think he's a valid pivot to Giannis, but I think I'd prefer to get to Jokic in those two pay up option lineups if you can do it. But Spags being choosers here. The total's really high, Josh. So I don't think there's anybody you don't have to play on the Thunder. Like you'd talk yourself in anybody. If you get Wiggins out, it looks even better for everybody here. It's a great spot. I like the totals in these games lately for Memphis and Atlanta are just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm neutral to Jalen Williams and Kaysen Wallace, but I'll take whatever, especially if Wiggins ends up out. But we just have so much salary to go around that it is just not difficult to get to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Giannis for me at this point. And who knows what we want to get to for Memphis, depending on some of their Q tags. But I'm looking at OKC, and it seems to me, at least as of right now, I'm going to be paying up quite a bit for Giannis and Shea. I'm interested to see how Jaylen Brown impacts that now with Tatum out. So we'll see what that ownership starts going. 9 OddsShopper rating, Kaysen Wallace under 11.5 points on ESPN bet. 4 OddsShopper rating, under 46.5 PRA on Shea. Under 11.5 boards for Isaiah Hartenstein as a 3 OddsShopper rating. So there's a couple really good options out there on the Thunder side, which then leads us into the Memphis Grizzlies. Kind of impossible to talk about him right now. Santi Aldama, questionable. Obviously, Triple J is going to be out for a couple weeks. Conchar, questionable. Morant, questionable. Scottie Pippen Jr., questionable. Everybody's sub 10% owned right now, but depending on how Aldama and Morant's news breaks, we might have some interesting pivots for the Memphis Grizzlies, given the total of this game.
Yeah, I assume that Morant and Aldama play, and if that's the case, nobody looks too great here, I think, overall. Those guys were at shoot-around today, so your assumption normally would be they play, but that hasn't always been the case this year, so just keep that in mind. If those guys are in, I'm getting the most Vince Williams, getting him in 6% of lineups. G.G. Jackson also getting at 3%. Fields barely playing him. I think those guys are the ones that end up being the biggest, opportunity guy gainers overall. Not having Jaren Jackson in, you theoretically are just getting more safe minutes for G.G. Jackson, who came in the moment that Jaren Jackson got hurt last game. But Memphis, it's a really high total here, not getting much. I think if you're to try to get some Morant, some Bane as just a bring back to pretty chalky Thunder guys, that'd be reasonable. But yeah, they don't look like as much of a priority here, even though they're benefiting from a high total matchup just as much as OKC is.
Yeah, if we lose Aldama and Morant, other than Bane, everybody else on this team is sub 5K. Like if Morant's out, we're probably getting a little bit of Luke Kennard. We're probably having a conversation about Pippen if he's in. The Conchar status will matter at that point. If Aldama is out, then we start looking at Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams. That starts to get a little weird. So that Memphis injury news is going to be really big. It's weird with those 4 7 o'clock games. You're going to have a lot locked, but we have some big time swap opportunities in Denver, in OKC, and in Memphis. This is a fun game to attack. I don't know where to start right now. Kind of want to get to a little bit more Memphis just for the swappability portion of it all. So we'll see how that plays out for the 9 and 9:30 games. Do you have anything else you want to add here for the Grizz?
No, I mean, I think if you get, Morant and Aldama out, and I do think they play, I think that you're going to get Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson looking like as good of a value as any on the slate. So I would just keep that in mind.
That concludes the 7-game DraftKings slate, but FanDuel crazies, we got one more to go. Detroit Pistons are 4.5-point favorites in Los Angeles, taking on the Clippers. 219 total. Pistons are still without Tobias Harris for this one. That is the only piece of injury news that we have here. Isaiah Stewart is probable. 18% ownership coming into Malik Beasley with no Tobias Harris around. Everybody else is like 5 or below. I like Beasley. That seems a little high for FanDuel just because you don't have that 3-point bonus. I'd be just as interested. Like, I think Asar Thompson looks just as good as Malik Beasley, and he's a third of the ownership, but there's not a lot here to like for Detroit. If Zubats is going to be healthy, this is still going to be a good Clippers defense.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you here. Beasley, I think for the DraftKings late slate would look okay. On FanDuel, I don't think he's quite as playable. Asar Thompson, with some of the things he adds in terms of defensive peripherals, he would look a little bit better on FanDuel. So those guys are really the only ones I'm getting. You obviously wouldn't want to play an Isaiah Stewart on a FanDuel. Jalen Duren, I don't think there's a spot for him either. It is a tough matchup with the Clippers. So, yeah, I mean, Cade, I guess, is an upside play that you don't have on the DraftKings slate. Maybe you get a little exposure on FanDuel, but he doesn't project super well to me here.
No, I just don't have much here on the Pistons side. Clipper side, slightly different. They're missing a couple bodies today. Derek Jones Jr. out, Kawhi out, Norm Powell out, Ben Simmons out, leading you to 30% owned James Harden, 20% owned Ivica Zubats, 20% owned Bogdan Bogdanovic, 10% owned Chris Dunn. A little bit of ownership coming into Amir Coffey, but Harden and Zoo, they look really good here today.
Yeah, when you don't have Powell, you don't have Kawhi in. I mean, Harden should be your big winner overall. He failed in the spot a few times recently, and that doesn't mean you don't go back there. The rates take a huge jump up, 42% assist rate, 36% usage and court time without Powell and without Kawhi for Harden. So, yeah, I think he's firmly in play on FanDuel today. Zubac, I have a hard time with kind of those mid-tier centers on FanDuel, so I might not be crazy about going there. I think he looks okay. And value plays Bogdanovic, Coffee, okay, but not really, must-haves by any stretch.
I think Coffee's probably a little under-owned based on our data. 3,900, 11% optimal, only 6% owned. I think Dunn's ownership looks fine. I think Bogdanovic looks fine. I think Harden and Zoo are the priorities here. And then as long as Bogdanovic doesn't break, 5K, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Going to play every minute he could possibly handle. I'm happy to get there. That's great flexibility. It's a fun little late night hammer for the FanDuel side. I wouldn't mind having that for DraftKings, but I also don't mind not having to look at my shit anytime after 9:30,
Yeah, I agree on that one.
Spags, we've done 8 games today for this slate. It's 6 o'clock on the dot. We're at 342 likes, which means 58 more gets us to 400. Maybe 58 likes will come in when Spags tells the people where to find him.
Yes, please hit that like button, guys. Otherwise, we don't get paid. That's unfortunately how it goes. But please hit the like button. Follow me at Chris Spags. Check out my YouTube channel at Splash Play NBA. I go live there every day before this one, 4 p.m. And I'll be back tomorrow with Eric Lindquist. So maybe the puppet will come back out. Who knows? But it's a fun slate, guys. There's going to be a lot of chaos. Pay attention. Hang in there. Leave some swappability. Really, it's going to be a fun one, right, Josh?
Yes, it is. I'm excited for it. Can't wait to get on to playback. But for now, guys, stay right here. Live Before Lock is next.
Yo, we're back. Yet another edition of the Stokastic Hall of Fame, and all you got to do to get involved Get the bronze, silver, gold, platinum tier, or one of those beautiful custom rings to commemorate your big win in the spinning display case. Just go to stokastic.com/HOF, download one of those beautiful avatars, use it wherever it is you play. When you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry fee, just tweet your wins to Stokastic HOF over there on Twitter, and you're in. Let's get it started. We got 3 Ring of Honors, starting it off with Tyler, and he had a 100K monster win thanks to the great tool strategy and a Timberwolves 25-point comeback win. Tyler Scanlon, 100K in the NBA fadeaway. Next up, Nyrod 914, Bang Bang Choo Choo Train. The playback show with Greg and Josh was pure gold, 50K. For Rod, HYH 614, there's another 100. Then we got a 50K. We got a 20K as well with Aaron. Just started using Stokastic a few days ago. Already earned myself a Ring of Honor. Thank you. There it is, 150 and 20. We got a gold tier too. Ben P, what's up, Ben? 2 days in a row with second place finishes. Third time in 4 days I'm tagging Stokastic Hall of Fame, but this time I took first ×2. Ben's been up here a lot. Adam Gant at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Man, a few words, but $2,500 win. First place in the Minimax to enter the silver tier. Then we got Corey Hansen in the silver. First Hall of Fame in 2025, but he did it twice. Second place last night in the fadeaway and piggy bank on FanDuel. Stokastic tools come through again. 2 screenshots there for Corey to get in the silver. Martin in silver. Stokastic does it again. They have the best tools for success in the industry. $400. Third place in the end one. Gold House. The info the guys at Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock provide, and with Stokastic tools definitely made this possible. First place in the quarter jukebox. And Alex, second place in FanDuel's piggy bank using the Sims. Third place in FanDuel's piggy bank again using the Sims. You gotta love it. Bang bang from bronze to silver just that quick. And then you got Lord Marikai, second place, $7,500 over there on FanDuel in a little showdown action. Chad Freeland, first place. What is that? My Kitten Hurts. $6,000, first place in the 4-point play. Janet took that.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to, just the usual NBA Live Before Lock for this week, where we have really an endless amount of news. Not all that long ago, Jason Tatum got ruled out. We had some lesser players that were ruled out as well, but the injury report today, it's substantial. It is substantial, Eric, where we have Nikola Jokic is questionable. Obviously, that ends up matter. I'll just read through all of the players who are on the injury report throughout the entirety of the night. We got Jokic questionable, John Morant questionable, Julius Randle questionable. We got Keontae George questionable, Santi Aldama is questionable, Aaron Gordon is questionable, Aaron Wiggins is questionable, Kai Jones is questionable, which you think it shouldn't matter that Kai Jones is questionable, but all of a sudden that's super important for the Dallas Mavericks. They signed Kai Jones just a couple of days ago. Josh and Spags, they were doing the show. They were trying to figure out, is Kai Jones even going to be playing at all for the Dallas Mavericks? And just a couple of days later, he's important. He's important to their rotation because of just the complete lack of bodies who are available for the Dallas Mavericks. So welcome to the second half of the NBA DFS season. Do us a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is once again going to be a pretty good day to check out Playback after we're done here. Monday, it was the most views we ever had on the Playback post-lock show. It was very short-lived because Tuesday topped the views that we had for Monday. maybe today we could do even bigger news, bigger views. And then also we're going to be doing some more fun stuff over on Playback, just like we did last night. So guys want to stick around for the Playback show that we do afterwards. Eric, what has happened with you today?
I like to think it was my halftime show that I came in impromptu on Monday for that ended up carrying the torch the rest of the way. I came in for a little dance party. I'm gonna say it was good times. I think might be running that one back more and more and more. Always fun to go kick it with the people there at halftime because I'm not leaving my seat for another 5-6 hours. That is for sure. It's gonna be a fun NBA slate. Then we got a night slate. And then I'll have NBA Lindy stuff. I mean, this is just kind of like the beginning of my day in a lot of ways, but ready to rock. Wally Balls, dude, you keep winning everything. I saw you won the secondary of the 1-1-1 because I didn't. He was ahead of me.
Also, by the way, you are muted over in Playback. The
That's bad.
Mentioned platform, which, by the way, if people are wondering how to get into Playback, Jordan will be dropping a link in as we get closer to the end of the show here that you guys just click on. That'll direct you right over to Playback. So you can go and check out everything that we are doing over there. And Eric, just looking at the slate, I want to know from you, of all the key players who are questionable tonight, do you have any strong leans on guys who are going to be in or out that are on the injury report?
I mean, I feel like we would know if Jokic was just sitting, right? Like, I got to think that he's closer to playing than not. And that's such a big part of this slate. I don't really have any opinion. Julius Randle could very well be 50-50. Kai Jones, I got to think they really want him to play basketball or they have 8 dudes. I'd say outside of the Jokic news where I do think he plays, everybody else is pretty 50-50 to me.
I don't know on Jokic. I don't know. I think this is a real ankle injury that he's dealing with. Something else as well, if you look at the matchup against Sacramento, it's kind of a hedge line here with Denver being favored by 6.5 with Sabonis out and Malik Monk out for Sacramento. If Jokic was in, that's a much wider line. If Jokic is out, then it's a much shorter line. So I think that sportsbooks as well are kind of looking at that spot and being like, hey, we don't know what exactly to make of Nikola Jokic, not to mention as well that Aaron Gordon is questionable in that spot. But yeah, a lot of these guys I'm really not sure on. And then even somebody like Julius Randle, I don't even know how much of it is his groin bothering him right now? Is it because this is the tail end of a back-to-back and he had sat all that time? I'm surprised how many minutes Julius Randle has played right away from coming back. And it's looked like it's kind of been a non-issue for him to this point. So a lot up in the air. And then also as we look at the early games, I don't even think this is a spot where we can just write off the early games with Jason Tatum being out. Like, how are we going to be getting away from Jaylen Brown and some of the other pieces from the Boston Celtics? So that's something else. Before we get into the actual guys we're looking at for the slate and answering everybody's questions, is there anything you're willing to forego from the early games to backload your lineups? Like, how are you approaching the late news that we're likely going to be getting today?
Yeah, again, I see people in the chat saying that the line is middled and, you know, obviously Jokic and it's Gordon and it's so many different pieces. I mean, obviously the Jokic one is gigantic because if he's not in, you want everything else. If he's in, you want to play Jokic because he'll be under-owned. I have no clue outside of, I do think he's more likely to play, but yeah, I'm not going to be bypassing anything in these early games. I think that there's enough good stuff that now is kind of unearthed. I mean, Jaylen Brown, we've routinely beaten the drum for it. And I will say this is probably one of the higher projections we've had on Jaylen Brown in this scenario in quite some time. But it makes sense because it's not just Jason Tatum that's out. It's Porzingis, it's Drew Holiday. I mean, this is going to be a lot of Derek White and Jaylen Brown. This is going to be a lot of Peyton Pritchard potentially off the bench. Sam Hauser, his minutes can go one way or the other, assuming that he starts. Who ends up being the center? I think Luke Cornett, a pretty good chance looking at our starting lineups page. Somebody that could definitely end up walking himself into a little bit of a different role. Like, there are so many Celtics that I think are interesting tournament plays, in addition to Jaylen Brown, who's like the first player in any of your lineups today. Him, Kyle Filipowski, 1, 2 in whatever order you want to talk about it. So even with like a very shorthanded Dallas team, it's like, oh, well, you play Dinwiddie and Cash, but I can get away from it somewhat in tournaments. I can't really do that with Jaylen Brown, considering he's projected for like 48 fantasy points.
Yeah. To me, where it gets really tricky to look at some of the early games is Jaylen Brown's an easy decision, right? I want to be playing a lot of Jaylen Brown, easy lock and cash games. Here are the guys that are more difficult for me, like Sam Hauser, Derek White, Luke Cornett, who you mentioned before, because these are guys who are very popular right now. They certainly project pretty well. But if Jokic is out, I want to have the Denver guys more than I have these guys. So that's
Correct.
the other thing that I'm kind of wrestling with is it's not the Jaylen Brown. That's an easy decision to me, but it's more so like my first run of Sims, I have 45% of Sam Hauser. Like how much of him do I really want when I know it could potentially be on the table later?
Yeah, and I mean, John Morant and Santi Aldama went through shoot around. I guess I didn't even talk about OKC Memphis. And, that's the latest game that we have on the main slate on DraftKings. You've got Detroit and the Clippers for FanDuel. I'm not playing FanDuel today, but I look at the Memphis side and I'm pretty secure that those guys end up playing. So you don't really have a lot of outs. If you backload your lineups for Denver and it doesn't pan out for you, like, I still think Michael Porter Jr. is like a tournament play. I think Jamal Murray tournament play, but like they're tournament priorities if you don't have Jokic in. If Gordon's out, it definitely helps both of them a little bit. But overall, it's not even just that. It's Zeke Naji end up being questionable, who started for Aaron Gordon in some spots where we could end up just getting the normal Russell Westbrook back in the starting unit kind of thing. So it's a lot of news that's going to be showing up. This is another great playback day. You got 4 games locking. We'll be able to rotate between the games. And then we've got a huge Q tag in Jokic that is just waiting in the wings. Kai Jones, I guess, a huge Q tag too under the circumstances. But I'm with you. It's uncomfortable to backload somewhat on this slate. The prices have started coming up across some of these spots. I mean, Dallas, not enough on Dinwiddie, but everybody else is kind of where it's at least you can get away from it. Like the Denver one is definitely an uncomfortable figuring out what to do with situation.
Yeah. By the way, Humboldt Parker, if you can't hear us, just turn the volume up. Just turn the volume up. If you say you can't hear us, easy. Just turn it up. The amount that we speak, the volume, it's the exact same on YouTube and playback. If you can't hear us, just turn the volume up, and you should be. You should be. Good
I think
to
he
go.
was just being a dick, just saying to mute me again. If we're being honest.
Well, also that is true. He was having. He says he can hear, but he says, I mean, whatever. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at some of the super chats that we've gotten right now that have come in, because I do think that some of these are really interesting things to talk about. But also want to shout out Wally Balls, who did say he took down the secondary $111 contest on DK last night. Thanks again, guys, for the work and the Sims work. Also, Wally Ball is going to be doing a little bit of a giveaway. He reached out to me. He wanted to know how he could give back to the community. So one thing that Wally did is he actually purchased. He's already a DFS sub here. He uses the Sims and projections for all the sports, but he also wanted to purchase a Sim sub for somebody else, and he's going to be doing a giveaway for it over on Twitter. So I don't know exactly what it is that Wally has up his sleeve to do for the giveaway, but keep an eye out on that. So shout out to Wally for the super chat, all the success, and also for wanting to help out some other people as well. We got Sunflower here. Sunflower saying, which 3 players from each team in the Jazz versus Wizards project for the most minutes? Okay, that's interesting. Jordan, can you pull up the projections? We'll look at both the Jazz and the Wizards. So he wants to know who from Utah we have projected to play the most minutes, the top 3, and then same for Washington. All right, so you see the 3 players from Washington we've projected for the most minutes are Coulibaly, Carrington, and Keyshawn George. The 3 players from Utah we've projected to play the most minutes are Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, and Kyle Filipowski. Now, part of this is as well, Keontae George dealing with an illness. He is questionable. That is news that we should be getting in the next 15 minutes or so, because that game locks, at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That game's going to be locking in 45 minutes.
He's in. I saw a beat reporter say that earlier, that George is in. I'll find it. I'll find it quick.
How much earlier?
Well, it was a little while ago.
Okay. I think you may have misread then. He's
1 hour ago, Washington Wizards update. Keyshawn George has been upgraded to available for tonight's matchup.
Keontae George.
Oh, Keontae George. Sorry. I thought you said Keyshawn George. See, this is the annoying part about both of them being in the same damn game.
Yeah. Yeah, Keontae George is questionable. He is dealing with
because Keyshawn he had the jaw issue and he was questionable in the injury report earlier, and then it was an update like an hour ago. I thought I heard you and heard Keyshawn.
Yeah. We've got it is a little confusing. We've got Keyshawn George, Keontae George, both of them in the same game. They were both questionable earlier. One George in, one George questionable. So we'll see what ends up happening with Keontae George. We should know in like 15-ish minutes or something like that. Next question here from Yobi Trice. Need your professional opinion. All right. Not our unprofessional opinion, Eric. No penis jokes here. Professional opinion. He needs to pick between Najee Marshall and Bilal Coulibaly, or if not, anybody else that we like for, okay. So basically anything that we like for under 6K or under. Then there's another part of this question as well, is who are our favorite value plays? Who is your favorite option for 6K and under today, Eric?
Tristan Vucevic.
I assume that it's a utility spot where he's 6,000 to spend. I wouldn't leave 3,000.
Okay, gotcha. Kyle Filipowski is the chalk.
Yeah, let's see. 6,000 and under. Man, that's tough. I don't have an issue with Filipowski being the answer. Yeah, I'll answer him as well. Coulibaly's another one you could potentially go to there. But then the question also is like, what are you doing with the extra $500? We can't use as a tiebreaker who's going to be starting later. They're both in the same game, locking at the same time. It's the first start on the slate. I'll agree with you with Filipowski there. The other part of this question is, who are the value plays that you absolutely cannot fade today? Now, there's definitely some news, like if Jokic is to be ruled out in the coming minutes, that's something that would massively change the outlook of the slate. But as of right now, the cheap guys, or at least the guys we call value players that I think we absolutely cannot get away from, Spencer Dinwiddie, that's one for me.
Yep.
Valanciunas, that's going to be another one for a couple of reasons. Number one is, and I know that he's not like super cheap, so maybe he's not necessarily what it is that you have in mind. By the way, speak the devil, Keontae George ruled out. So that's,
see, I knew they were both out. Saw it on a beat reporter report earlier. No fake news, chat.
So yeah, Keontae George officially ruled out. We'll circle back onto that in a second. But Jonas Valanciunas, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I already think he looks like a good option as of now. I think he's under-owned at around 20% ownership when you consider there's no Sabonis there. But here's the other part of this too. I really like having Valanciunas preloaded into lineups. I think he's somebody to give a positive ROI boost to, just because if Jokic is ruled out, it just gives you more flexibility considering they're in that same game playing against each other. Sam Hauser, really strong consideration. Filipowski, he's definitely another one. For yourself, the can't miss value options for today.
Yeah, I think that everybody you just said is pretty darn good. I think Justin Champagnie probably ends up being one as well. I think we still see quite a bit of minutes for him sub 4K. Like it's getting thinner. Jordan Poole, Rashawn Holmes, Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, they still have a number of bodies, I suppose. So I guess not must play by any means, but it's just up in my lineups at the moment. I think you had a pretty darn good list going. I mean, it's Filipowski. If we're just saying sub 6K, Filipowski, Dinwiddie, Vucevic, Peyton Pritchard, I really like as well, with one of the main two guys out, as well as Drew Holiday. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. And then the J-Val play also. Joe-Val looks really, really good in tournaments. I'm surprised he's not a little bit more popular, but that's neither here nor there.
All right, let's talk about the situation with the Utah Jazz, where, look, I love to, you guys know this, people make fun of me for trying to limit exposure to the early games and trying to, situate my lineups to late swap. This is one of these slates, so I don't know how we're going to get away from the early games at this point. I'm really hoping that Jokic plays at this point now, because like what am I going to do? We're going to avoid the Utah Jazz with all these guys out. We're going to avoid the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum and Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis out. Now we got Utah, no Keontae George, in addition to all the other guys who are just out for no reason other than the team actively trying to lose at this point. Because here's the total injury report now for the Jazz. In addition to Keontae George being out, Jordan Clarkson's out, Lauren Markkanen's out, John Collins out, Colin Sexton's out, Walker Kessler's out, Jaden Springer's out, which obviously normally wouldn't matter, but it matters in the context of Keontae George and all these other guys being out. Who are the strongest options to get to from Utah outside of Filipowski, who we were going to like anyway? It's more so the backcourt that we're seeing additional minutes picked up now.
Yeah, the first guy is Isaiah Collier, who just continues to stat pad in the most ridiculous of ways. He's $6,300 less than Keontae George was, but that definitely ends up just elevating him. We had Sexton back out of the middle of nowhere last time out. I mean, they are just finagling the injury report every single damn day, but with no Clarkson, no Sexton, there's just so much opportunity, I think, for Isaiah Collier to go out and play infinity minutes. Bryce Sensabaugh is the other guy that, I mean, he was already popular, but Bryce Sensabaugh likes to chuck. And Bryce Sensabaugh should be allowed to chuck ad nauseum alongside Kyle Filipowski here in this spot. I guess the other one that's kind of interesting, who was pulling no ownership before, but at least there's a path to now. Like Svi Mikhailuk has to probably play because we saw Collier sharing the floor quite a bit with Keontae George. I think Svi Mikhailuk ends up kind of being that two guard. Like Johnny Juzang's been starting, but I think Svi goes from like pretty irrelevant, like 14 fantasy point projection, to being somebody who should be like right around 19, 20. And I think if you're trying to go off the board a little bit here, I think he ends up being the guy that I'm kind of thinking walks into more minutes in a much larger role. Like I can't think of anybody else's minutes that increase more than his with this news.
Yeah. Also, so here's what I think about Sensabaugh. Per the question that we were asked earlier about value options we can't get away from, Sensabaugh becomes one of those guys now at $4,300. I have to add him to the list of cheap value guys that I think are unavoidable. Now that we have no Keontae George in the mix for the Utah Jazz, I agree. I think Sensabaugh looks really good. He is somebody who I'm not going to be able to get away from in the early games here now. Let's see also, do we have projections updated?
Dude, they're going to roll something really dumb out, aren't they? Utah is?
Yeah, probably. Well, actually, I mean, Keontae George hasn't been starting, so it's not like that's going to impact it all that
I mean, I'm assuming Collier, Juzang, Sensabaugh, Martin, Filipowski, but I mean, just saying that they're going to roll out ridiculous minutes here because they have 1, 2, 3. They only have 9 today for what it's worth.
Yeah, let's see. So they have who is available for the Jazz? They have Filipowski, they've got Collier, Sensabaugh, KJ Martin, Svi Mikhailuk, Johnny Juzang, Micah Potter, Cody Williams, Oscar Chishbue, and is EJ Harkless active or is he in the G League right now?
Or could you be EJ Harkless?
Yeah. Let me check the injury report. I think he's in the G League. I just want to double check though.
He is in the G League, correct.
Okay. Yeah, so just 9 guys. Anybody who you think could potentially be contrarian from the Utah Jazz who might want to play in tournaments?
Well, I think everybody's kind of in play. I mean, we've got a 3K. I'm not going to go for Oscar's name one more time. And then the other one just being Micah Potter. I mean, Micah Potter has had some starts. I got to imagine if you're truly tanking this thing, like you're going to roll Micah Potter out there and he's 3K. So, I mean, he's a horrible fantasy producer, but everybody who's a normal fantasy producer is gone off of this team anyway. I mean, that list is just ridiculous of what we're looking at here in terms of who is not playing in this game against Washington. I mean, Washington, 5.5 point favorites against the Jazz. I mean, this is an unbelievable basketball game, the likes of which I feel bad for the fans in attendance. Like, what are you actually doing other than like, hopefully you're cutting deals or like making your side piece happy? Because like, there's no other reason to be at this basketball game.
When you said cutting, I thought you were going to say coke. I thought it was just, hey, yeah, drugs will get you through that game. And if you, by the way, we've got
Probably
projections updated now. If you wouldn't mind, Jordan, I don't even know if cocaine can make this game exciting.
Nope.
Jordan, pull the projections up for the Utah Jazz. Just refresh this page if it isn't already.
I know Oscar played at Kentucky. He was, I mean, call him a monster. They got a first round exit, didn't they, last year?
Here we go.
Oscar character. Whatever.
Utah projections, and I mean, like everybody, like you said, Eric, almost everybody from this team, with the exception being KJ Martin, because he's $4,100, not super cheap. Everybody else is projecting pretty well on a points per dollar basis. We've got Collier, Filipowski, Sensabaugh, all projected for north of 30 fantasy points. They all look excellent at their respective price points. You got Johnny Juzang and Svi Mikhailuk. They're both projected for mid-20s fantasy points. Then just under 20 fantasy points, you've got Tishbui, we've got Cody Williams, we've got KJ Martin and Micah Potter. So I think most of my lineups are going to have at least 2, if not even 3 players from the Utah Jazz. This is also a crazy up-paced matchup against the Wizards.
Yep, it's dumb. And also, I mean, I kind of did a ballpark thing where it's like, oh, I'll drag this in this column. We have Svi projected better than I was expecting. And that is going to put him in even more lineups for me, even coming off the bench. So it is assumed to be coming off the bench. It's just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane what we're looking at.
Yeah, I am going to run the Sims to update my lineups here and see what it is that I'm getting to from the Utah Jazz afterwards. Also, guys, this time of season, you really want to be accessing our late swap tools, our projection updates. Our data team's been killing it as of late. The easiest way to sign up for those tools, either just go right through the link that we have down below in the YouTube description box and sign up for a subscription. It all comes with access to our Discord channel as well if you have questions to ask us. But also, check out any of our affiliate partners. For each one of these books or sites you sign up for, you get 1 free month of a Stokastic NBA core package. We've only got a month and change left in the NBA DFS season. And if you guys sign up for just one of these sites, it is going to get you an NBA core subscription for most of the remainder of the NBA season. So if there's any of these books on screen that you guys have not signed up for yet, we've got some that are pick'em books. So if you live in a state like Eric does in California, where you don't have access to sports books, but you could play on Chalkboard or you could play on Better, sign up for one of those, get a deposit bonus offer, you get some free squares, free month of NBA core access. And then maybe if you live in a state like me, like New Jersey, you can bet on sports, go sign up at BetMGM, sign up at Caesars, take advantage of some of the deposit offers that are really substantial at these sites. You get yourself a couple $100 in bonus money. Get yourself an NBA DFS subscription for our site as well. It is a ton of value. Just make sure when you're signing up, you go through our sign up page because that's how we know that you came from us and then that you get credit for the sign up to get the free month. So sign up, do it through our NBA link join page right there. And if you have any questions, hit me up and ask me. Eric, once again, any final thoughts on Utah before we move on from here?
Absolutely none. It is an unavoidable place to go with your life. We're just going to play it. So God rest us all. God rest our souls. It's just something ridiculous is going to happen that pisses us all off. It's like inevitable.
Let's see. All right. Ownership just updated as well. Jordan, pull up ownership. We'll look at it for DraftKings and FanDuel. I want to get some immediate reactions from Eric on what he makes of the latest ownership updates. We'll start with DraftKings, and then we'll look at FanDuel afterwards as well. On DraftKings, Bryce Sensabaugh, now the most popular player on the slate, 62% projected on. Jaylen Brown, 59%. Isaiah Collier, 47.7%. Filipowski, 43.9%. Then you've also got north of 36% ownership going to Spencer Dinwiddie, SGA. Any of those players too popular to you, or does it all look reasonable?
It's a lot of ownership on Bryce Sensabaugh. It's a lot of people who want to play Bryce Sensabaugh, but it totally makes sense. It's sensible for Sensabaugh, and I will see myself out.
I do think it's funny that without rerunning my lineups, I assume I'm still going to get to, a pretty good amount of SGA today. But I think it's funny that in a pretty similar sort of outlook, in terms of just like projection, other value available on the slate, he was like 10% owned in the Thunder's last game when I liked him as a contrarian option. Now, without anything changing other than him playing really well last game, he's now nearly 40% owned.
Hilarious.
I'm going to, by the way, Julius Randle in today. He will be playing.
I think it was a back-to-back for them for what it was worth, the SGA spot, right?
I don't think so.
Was it not last time out? I can't remember. I thought it was. Anyway, continue on.
I want to try to mine out other pay-up options to get to our contrarian instead of SGA. Like the same reasons that I played SGA the other day, I want to find another guy to pay up for who's contrarian that I think delivers considerable upside.
Oh, we got that for you, baby. We got that.
Ooh. Who do you have in mind?
Jordan Klein. Hit it.
All right. I'm curious. If you don't go with a low owned pay up option after that intro you did there by saying you know the guy, I'm going to be quite disappointed. Eric, who do you have in mind? Who's the nuke of the night you're looking at today?
Yeah, it's going to be a package, actually. It's going to be a package deal. We're looking at Sacramento and Denver, and we're going to see a lot of ownership come in on Utah, Washington, as we should. We're going to see a lot of value there, but Milwaukee has Giannis, and I think that that's just fine. He's definitely underowned, and he has the power forward eligibility. And we have OKC with SGA waiting in the wings, so you have an out there. And having an out there kind of makes it a package deal where you should be testing around what Jokic looks like with everybody else. But on a slate with infinity value, to not at least have a path to get to a ton of Nikola Jokic on today's slate makes absolutely no sense to me. We have him in for 23% ownership, but he's got that Q tag. And the longer that sits, the better odds you have of Nikola Jokic making people uncomfortable and at least giving yourself a path to like a lower ownership number on the highest projected player on every single slate. Now, the thing I've been testing around with was, well, what does my swap end up looking like in the event that it isn't there? Well, you've got 10-8 for SGA, and you're saying 40% ownership. There's going to be a lot of ownership, a lot of lineups if you're going to boost Jokic, where you're still going to have SGA. But if you're hand building out a couple lineups, which a lot of people are on the show, or if you're building things out in the Sims tool, at least want to like have something figured out for your backup plan. Jokic, Murray, and then SGA, and you could be spending up for the likes of somebody that's either in that Sacramento, Denver spot, and that could be Zach LaVine, or you've got John Morant, who I'm pretty sure ends up playing at 8,300, and I think is a really, really good contrarian option for tournaments. It's an $8,300 John Morant playing at home against Oklahoma City in a game that should be flying. Like every game Memphis plays flies, almost unconsciously so, but there are ways of making that salary work and diversifying out your lineups. I like the John Morant piece, and obviously he's really low owned relative to some other spots, but Nikola Jokic, he is my favorite spend up because of that Q tag, your nuke of the night.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find like I said, I'm trying to find guys who are lower owned that are pay up options. So it's not the direction that I'm going to go with right here. I'm going to go with Max Christie. Dallas Mavericks, super shorthanded at this point, and it's a team totally in disarray. My gut feeling is I think Anthony Davis is going to end up requesting a trade in the offseason. Part of that might also just be wishful thinking because I want bad things to happen to this Dallas Mavericks organization. But the only real bright spot they've had as of late is that Max Christie has played quite well for them since they went and acquired him as part of the trade for Anthony Davis when they shipped out Luka. I think we're going to see bigger minutes for Max Christie down the stretch of the season. Like, are they really going to play Clay 35 minutes per game down the stretch of the season here? And what's a lost year where they're likely not going to make the playoffs? I don't think so. Do they bring back Anthony Davis? That seems unlikely. He's already expressed, at least according to Shams, that he doesn't want to play for the Dallas Mavericks the rest of the season. So I think you might as well just run Max Christie out there, play him big minutes, have the offense run through him a little bit more, try to develop him down the tail end of the season. Also, with him being in a later starting spot, if we do end up getting Aaron Gordon and/or Nikola Jokic out for Denver, that'll give us a little bit more flexibility than if I'm picking somebody here that's going to be in an earlier locking game. So Max Christie, I think he's poised to take on a pretty big role with no Kyrie Irving and no Anthony Davis down the stretch of the season.
Like that call. I thought about Kessler Edwards, and then I kept living my life. I was thinking about him as a nuke option, and then all of this Utah value just looks even better than what it did before, so it's pretty unavoidable now.
All right, let's see what else we have for questions. And once again, guys, don't forget that in 25 minutes, even though the show is going to end on YouTube, it is going to continue over on playback with Josh and myself. We've got a special deal for you guys today that I'm pretty excited about. We had that deal yesterday that I know a lot of you guys were pretty excited about. This was something you guys had requested as well. We did the show yesterday, which is one of the reasons that we ended up bringing this under the show for tonight. So definitely check out Playback in 25 minutes. We should have some good late swap options for you guys as well. Or at 14 wants to know, should he play Oscar Tischbui at all? How many lineups are you playing? If it's just one, that's going to be a no for me. Even he's not going to be somebody who having more than like 5% of lineups or something like that. It might not even be that much. For most of you who are playing the slate today, and if you're looking for somebody who could potentially be, like a lower owned value option, I think there's better places to go to than Oscar Tischbui off the bench for Utah. How do you
hold up? I mean, that was over the course of you talking there, Kai Jones was ruled in and now he was ruled out. So Dallas has 8. That was insane. They ruled him in, then just immediately update. He's out.
Did they rule him in, or did somebody make a clerical error that works for Underdog?
For Schmunderschmog? Yeah, I think it was Schmunderschmog's mistake, probably. Reddit long.
Who knows? Dallas has fucked up a lot of things this year. Maybe they did mess that up. I
blame it on Nico.
It's probably an Underdog mistake.
Yeah, this was Nico. How many minutes can Dwight Powell play? 17, 18 max?
I know he was on a hard 12 minutes restriction for a little bit, so I can't imagine it's all that many.
And Prosper's on a he sucks restriction, so that's the other part of this. Oh, God.
He started and played 9.5 minutes last game.
He's so bad, dude. He's so bad.
I assume he starts and plays like 18 minutes.
I mean, Edwards is going to play like 40 then. Like, that's what it feels like. I mean, 30, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I mean, good Lord of Christ, Mary and Joseph, our savior. I mean, good God, Mike Curtis. Yeah. Thank you, News God. I mean, Kai Jones out. This is just going to be absolutely wild.
Yeah. So let's talk about the front court for the Dallas Mavericks, which also now I feel
what front court?
I feel better about liking somebody like Max Christie. Does Olivier Maxence prosper? Do we have to see him play extended minutes now? Because you look in the front court for Dallas, here are the big men they have available now with no Kai Jones. And also in total, actually we might as well run off. Here are all of the players in general they have available. Najee Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie, Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Olivier Maxence Prosper, Kessler Edwards, Brandon Williams, Dwight Powell. 8. That is the minimum. That is the least amount of players you are allowed to have before you have to forfeit an NBA game. So they only have 8 guys who are available today. Dwight Powell can't play extended minutes. At least we don't think he can. It's logical to think he can't. He was on a 12 minutes restriction, although he played past it and went 16 in a couple of games there. I can't figure out who plays the front court minutes. I guess they just run out Olivier Maxence Prosper.
So my guess is the starting lineup is Dinwiddie, Christie, Thompson, Marshall, Edwards. I think that's your starting 5. I don't think Olivier Maxence Prosper starts. Maybe Dwight Powell starts again just as the center and
I'm pretty sure Powell
in there.
Starts.
Okay, yeah, that's probably true. I mean, this is just dumb trying to allocate the minutes. I mean, this is just dumb. You have to give minutes to somebody, and I don't think I can go over 18 minutes on Powell under any circumstance. So that means we're just giving Maxence Prosper enough minutes where he has to matter, and Edwards enough minutes where he has to matter. They suck, though, compared to like anything from Utah, Washington, I think. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. Like, they just had to price Najee Marshall up to 5,900. So like, he's still going to look okay at 5,900 because of the minutes he's going to probably have to play. But I'm with you. I think Max Christie, this really makes him look better because his minutes really haven't been up there. They've had 2 blowout losses the last 2, 27, 29 minutes. The guy was playing mid-30s pretty much since landing in Dallas, even off the bench. So like, he's definitely going to look better. I know it's not a front court option, but I think the front court options just kind of suck here.
Also, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan, can you pull the FanDuel ownership and put it on screen? Because I told the people we were going to do that, and then just other things ended up happening while we were talking, and didn't quite get to show the FanDuel ownership. So read that off for everybody as well. And obviously, subject to change as more news continues to break, like the Dallas stuff here. But at least in the last ownership update we had, Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Jaylen Brown, all north of 50% owned. Then you've got Kyle Filipowski, SGA, and Jalen Williams all coming in at north of 30% ownership as the other chalkiest options over on FanDuel. Back to your guys' questions in the super chats. And if you guys haven't done it, do us a favor, support the video by liking it and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And also, if you want to further support us, consider signing up for a package or signing up for one of our affiliate partners. Eric Goodwin wants to know best pay up option on DK, assuming no Jokic. It's SGA then. Like SGA is the best pay up option. I just think he's I think he's a little bit too popular. But if we're just talking about like who's the best in terms of fantasy points, SGA.
I like Giannis more.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
We have him better projected.
Coley Poston wants to know somebody from Boston is breaking the slate. Who is it? Probably Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown seems good. Derek White could do it. Peyton Pritchard could do it. Those are probably your three main candidates.
The one I'm going to be playing the most of, it's going to be Jaylen Brown. No doubt about it. I'm playing the most Jaylen Brown.
Without a doubt.
I haven't updated my lineups in the most recent news, but it's going to be Jaylen Brown.
Oh my God. Our update for OMP is the stuff of absolute nightmares.
Do we have the update just came through?
Sure do. It's actually going to hurt my brain a little bit.
Jordan Klein, do us a favor. Go to the Dallas Mavericks on the projections page. I'm going to start updating my lineups here. Here's what we got. By the way, I think this makes sense. You have to allocate center minutes to somebody. They only have a couple of players who are big men that could play minutes.
Yeah.
And we've got, by the way, I'm going to message, but if anybody from the data team is watching, Kai Jones is still, not that it's significant, but Kai Jones is still projected for 1.5 minutes. But I mean, we gave Dwight Powell 20 minutes, which I think is really pushing the limit of what he could possibly do.
Yeah.
Who else is playing the big man minutes? Like, I think Prosper has to play a pretty decent chunk of center minutes. He's only $3,700. We don't have him projected for a crazy amount of minutes. We got him for 29.5 minutes. He's a pretty good fantasy producer. That hasn't been 28.5 minutes. This makes sense to me.
Swear to God, if Milwaukee doesn't cover 9.5, I'm going to lose my mind. Just letting it be known.
And Jason just responded as well, just fixing that to zero out Kai Jones here. So if you take, it's only 1.5 minutes, so it could be spread out across a number of different guys. But this could get OSM north of 30 minutes. He's a really strong value option now. Worst case scenario as well, if we play him, our lineups are at least a little bit more backloaded.
Yeah, there it is. It's terrifying, man. I think you know exactly what I mean. I mean, how many times have we seen OMP just be incapable of staying out on the floor? It's happened a lot, but I do think he looks like potentially the best point per dollar play on the entire slate, which is just absurd on this slate. Like, it's just absurd.
Yeah. Once again, getting back to the question we had before about the best value plays we can't get away from, Prosper looks like one of them now to me.
Unreal.
Kyle Kaywood. Kyle Kaywood wants to know, don't really have a question. Just wanted to thank both of you for everything you do. Eric and Greg are the best, in my opinion. I won my first contest the other night after playing DFS for years. Shout out, Kyle. Sorry that I probably mispronounced your last name, but I read it the best I could. It's C-A and then Wood. Kaywood. I'm fairly sure it's one of those two. But shout out to Kyle. Love to see when you guys win tournaments. Connor, DK cash game locks. Jokic is a spend up or too risky? SGA is clearly your spend up for cash games.
Yeah.
He's going to be like 60% owned in cash.
Yes, you should be, but I don't think that's your only spend up. I think you're probably playing Giannis in cash too.
You're definitely not playing Jokic in cash either way, though.
No, you're not. Yeah, Jokic is tournaments.
Other players this is so hard. There's so many directions you could go.
Yeah, I mean, my
games,
God.
But all right, so SGA is a spend up option. Absolutely Jaylen Brown, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Bryce Sensabaugh, Olivier Maxence Prosper. Yeah, I just gave out a bunch of cheap guys. I mean, Dinwiddie should probably be in that. I feel like there's like 20 must play guys.
Collier, Brown. I mean, this is probably the easiest and hardest cash game day I can remember in a while. I mean, I think I can just look at the board and know that you're playing Sensabaugh, Collier, Brown, OMP probably, both spend ups. So yeah, there's that. But then there's going to be like a 2v2 that's just going to look disturbing. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be tournament only for me. That's for sure. It's disturbing to look at.
Anybody else who I didn't mention you think is a must play for cash games?
You said Dinwiddie, right?
I did. I don't even know if Dinwiddie is must play at this point because like there's an opportunity cost there. I listed 8 guys, and I don't even know if they.
Yeah, because I mean, you could play
left a bunch of salary on the table.
Yeah, Svi and Brown, shooting guard, small forward, kind of both exist there. Sensabaugh, you're playing probably small forward, power forward. Giannis, SGA, Filipowski. I mean, I think that's kind of it. There's a world where you could go to Hauser, you could go to Pritchard, but I think that world's probably closed now. The Boston pieces, I think we did a good job. Those main 4, Sensabaugh, Collier, Filipowski, all 3 Utah guys. Jaylen Brown must play cash. SGA must play cash. Giannis must play cash. That's literally 7 guys we gave you.
All right, let's see what else we have for questions. We got Yurtawa wants to know any Heat guys viable on FanDuel. Burks, Mitchell, Bam. Here, there's just better option. I'm not going to say these guys are unplayable. Like if you just want to know who's viable, there's no Tyler Hero. There's definitely guys that look better. There's other players I'm prioritizing, but yeah. Wouldn't go to Mitchell at a high clip. Bam, pretty high priority or relatively high priority play relative to the other Heat guys. Yeah, I'll say Burks, Mitchell, and Bam are all viable, but none of them are of like super high importance to me.
No, none of them.
Next question, Darren Unger for FanDuel cash, Marshall and Jalen Williams or Cornette and Ant? Marshall and Jalen Williams.
Correct.
Starting lineup for the
it's normal.
Jazz. Cool. Nothing. This would have been a real pain in the ass if they threw out a crazy starting lineup 10 minutes before the game starts. Nothing insane. Collier, Sensabaugh, Juzang, Morton, Filipowski. I would have been really annoyed if Sensabaugh wasn't starting, which was a possibility there.
Agreed.
But all good. We got a normal starting lineup there. Let's get into the questions we have from Discord, beginning with Coach DFS. Who are the single entry must plays?
Oh, God. I almost want to refrain from answering this purely because there's so many strong plays, and I'm just kind of letting the Sims tool run right now. I just ran it for my single entry stuff for small field, so I'll let you know in 2 seconds. But like, my guess is that there's 1 or 2 plays because like Olivier Maxence Prosper is relatively low owned compared to what he should be right now. What did we end up getting up to? He's at 50 now. Okay, there you go. That's completely different. As I'm finishing this out, I'm going to run this and kind of see, but like, there's so many strong plays on today's slate. So it's like playing 6 of those with a 2v2 that's just different in some capacity that doesn't give up a ton of projection and hopefully trim some of your ownership. I'm just kind of taking whatever the top of the Sims tool gives me today because it's going to be smarter than I am.
All right. So there's certain guys like I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Prosper. I'm not going to call him a must play in single entry though. The guys that I think are the actual must plays for single entry, Jaylen Brown, Bryce Sensabaugh. There's so many interchangeable. Like if you told me that you were playing like Prosper instead of Sensabaugh, I wouldn't hate that either. But I'm still, I'm going to go Sensabaugh. I'm going to say Jaylen Brown. I'll say Filipowski.
Like normally we have 2 or 3 plays that are just like, oh, these are your must plays in single entry, and you piece kind of everything around it. There's 15 of those plays today. Like there's legitimately 15 of them. So I'm going to just tell you this. I really like the idea in tournaments on single entry to try to go towards like a blowout script of Washington, Utah, what that looks like to you. And I think Tristan Vucevic, he's in my top simulated ROI lineup in the Sims tool. I think that makes sense. I think the other 2 that I really like for single entry, and I'm not sure how popular they get to, but I don't really care because of the projection, are SGA, Giannis, and Jokic. like 2 of those 3, I feel like you should be playing with all the value we have, barring absolutely something insane. I'll also say this. I kind of like Kessler Edwards more than I like OMP for single entry, as I'm just kind of like piecing through this. Because if Kessler Edwards ends up being drastically lower owned like we currently have, I think Kessler Edwards at 3,900 ends up being one of the better plays of the entire slate. And Olivier Maxence Prosper is only $200 less to him. And, he's pulling a lot higher optimal number, but I think the ownership that you're trimming by going to Edwards is probably worth it in single entry.
Can you pull up the starting lineups page, Jordan? I'm just curious what we have projected as the starting 5 for this stupid Dallas team.
That's
who deserve nothing but bad things to happen to them.
That me too. It's so fantastic to watch them burn. Let it burn.
All right, so we went with. So it is worth noting that the projection we have on Prosper is even though we don't even project it to be starting.
That's unbelievable.
We've got Edwards projected to be starting at the moment. Obviously subject to change based on what the actual starting lineup is, but it's not preventing there from being a really strong projection on Prosper. The thinking here being is that Prosper's projection is more likely to go up than down going forward.
Correct.
All right,
Dude,
running
this is
the
a wild
final
slate.
sim for myself, at least pre-lock. Ethan 7, any chalk to get away from in single entry? Yeah, SGA. I think that instead of SGA in single entry, obviously is a tremendous upside, but you could get Jokic and Giannis for half the ownership. That to me, SGA is the guy to get away from in single entry. It's funny because 2 days ago, it was the exact inverse for me, but it's for all the same logic. It has nothing to do with the players or the projection. It's more of an ownership thing. How about for you, Eric? If you were getting away from one chalk option in single entry, are you agreeing with me on SGA or is it somebody else?
One chalk option to get away from in single entry. You
Correct.
could get away from him. I'm not going to be getting away from him in single entry. So,
all right. The Black Mamba, thoughts on GG Jackson today?
Not
There's
today.
So many other priorities. He's somebody who I can't imagine is going to land unless here's the caveat to this. If Ja Morant and Santi Aldama are both ruled out, then GG Jackson looks really good. Assuming that they were to both play, there's just other cheap guys I have to prioritize.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything about it, though. Like, I'll just kind of hope something can be swapped around after the fact. We have enough exposure late. I mean, there's so much Utah, Washington exposure that, anything's going to be a little bit lower on. Like, if we get Jokic and Gordon ruled out, all hell breaks loose because, like, I don't want to get to MPJ. I mean, I'd just be praying to God Zeke Naji got ruled out too, because otherwise, we could be talking Dario Saric is like a actual thing in the world. I doubt even DeAndre Jordan starting, I'd want to get to him. And then Russell Westbrook could potentially be one of the best under-owned plays on the slate. So, like, there's a lot that if Jokic ends up playing, you're in trouble. But now at least Dallas has given us some extra exposure. Like Dallas, Milwaukee with Giannis, with all of the Dallas pieces, that's the one thing I'm just kind of happy about looking at my lineups is that I have enough there that I should be able to get onto Jokic or be able to get onto some type of value that exists there.
Yeah, I'm just going through my lineups. As we make final updates, is there anybody that you maybe want to limit exposure to from the early games to give yourself a little bit more flexibility? I know I'm trying to limit at least some of the fringier value options like Vukcevic or Johnny Juzang, not because these guys don't project well, but just because there are better value options as of right now. And I don't want to have like Jokic get ruled out and be like, oh, I can't play DeAndre Jordan, who's starting at center because I already have like Vukcevic in 20% of lineups or something like that. So I'm trying to trim some of the not as great value options from the first games.
Yeah. And I think it's tough because they look so good, but I'm with you where a little can go a long way. Like if we're able to trim a little bit of, I just have so much sensible. I just don't want to say that I'm doing something that I'm not. Like Collier's under-owned at 45% ownership. Like Filipowski's under-owned now. Like these are guys that are still incredible plays that I don't want to be trimming too much. But I think you're probably right. Like I just talked about Vucevic. He's just popping at the top of the sims. I think that's somebody that I'm actually okay with, like trimming down a little bit, not going as nuts on and hoping that nothing completely burns me there. Cause they can hit their projection here and not necessarily be must-haves.
Yeah. I mean, other guys too, like Alex Sarr doesn't project poorly or anything like that, but I just ran Sims and I had over 30% of him. I don't want that. Because I don't want to have that many of my lineup spots taken up. So I cut him down so that he would be in 15% of lineups instead of 30 plus. He's another one for me. Let's see, were there any other super chats that just came in? Funny new videos says, tell Wade to get on Marvel Rivals and stop losing. You guys all playing Marvel Rivals together? This is
everybody keeps bringing up Marvel Rivals to me. Why is this? What is going on?
Dorian Ogans, Dinwiddie and Hauser, Juzanger, Rozier, Sensball. All right. Dinwiddie and Hauser.
There you go.
Amy S, top 3 for points scored tonight. Ooh, all right. Who are you picking to be the 3 highest scorers on the slate, Eric? For real,
SGA is the chalk by a landslide. I think SGA, Giannis would be 2 or 3. I mean, it would be Jokic. I think, just like thinking off the top of my head of like who the chalk is. Like if you're looking for somebody contrarian that could go nuts,
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown is probably there. Anthony Edwards, we haven't even said his name this entire show, and he goes for 40 every so often. Way off the board, Zach LaVine.
Okay. I'll go Giannis, SGA, and Jaylen Brown for myself. Okay. Darren Unger, no, we answered that question. All right, we're all caught up on those. So getting back to Discord, we got Robashua, DK20 Max, Kessler Edwards, or ONP. I currently have more of Prosper. Did you end up with more of Edwards or Prosper, Eric?
Edwards. Nope. I have just about the identical amount of the two, 34%.
All right. Diamond Hansy wants to know best tournament plays on FanDuel. Yeah, it still stars and scrubs on both sites. I don't think the analysis is all that much different site to site for today. But for me, once again, is trying to find actually, you know what? I'm gonna say Jokic over on FanDuel. He's somebody who I really think is going to be low owned over on FanDuel with there only being one center spot. So if you want to get really contrarian over on the FanDuel side of things, that's where I think Jokic is going to make some sense. Otherwise, though, like Olivia Maxence Prosper, he still looks really good over on FanDuel, as well as Bryce Sensabaugh, Isaiah Collier. All these guys are excellent on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Pat Clay Tomstar, which Mavs do we want to see, or which Mavericks players do we like the most? All right, so Mavericks players for me, Olivia Maxence Prosper, Spencer Dinwiddie,
Edwards.
Brandon Williams is a lower owned one that I ended up getting some exposure to. I'm overweight to Kessler Edwards right now as well. Anything else you had from Dallas?
Yeah, the main 5 guys for me. Yeah, OMP, Spencer Dinwiddie, Max Christie, Kessler Edwards, Brandon Williams.
Any final thoughts here, Eric? Or once again, the hour went by very, very quickly.
Yeah, that absolutely flew. I swear to God, if Milwaukee doesn't win by 10 or more. But other than that, head over to Playback. I said this last time, I'll say it again. There are 4 games. You'll be able to watch games along with Josh, along with Greg. And then after that, there's going to be tons of news. What happens if Jokic gets ruled out? What's the game plan there? How do you move your lineups around? They're going to be able to give you guys the answer. So you're kind of doing it wrong if you're available right now and you just watch this show to not head over to Playback. Plus some cool giveaways. We got some drawings coming your way. I would be jumping over there this second.
Absolutely. By the way, I see right over here, Ghostface Kicker, before we head on over to Playback. He said that he signed up for the link join offer. He signed up on BetMGM using the link. What's the next step? On that page, super easy. We got all the steps laid out for you. Could you throw that up on screen here really quick for the people before we leave, Jordan? That link join page. We got all the steps for you. So you don't have to memorize them or anything like that. Just go to the page. Choose one of the promos. Have to use the link provided on the page. Sign up using the offer, deposit and place a bet. Take a screenshot of your welcome email and the first settled bet, then email support with the screenshot. Tell us which league it is that you'd like for you. That's going to be NBA there, Ghostface Kicker. And boom, you're good to go. Follow those steps. That's all there is to it. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Playback Josh aren't going to be on over there. We got a special offer for you guys again today that you aren't going to want to miss out on. Josh is dressed like a NASCAR guy who's going to be changing tires. You want to see that as well? Come join us over there. Jordan's going to drop the link. Just click on that, direct you right over to Playback. See you guys over there. Peace out.